We're now going to talk about controlling your health.
Yes.
And, controlling your breast health and the impact of the pandemic and how to access support and care. So Holly, I'm going to step off to the side now.
Thank you, Georgie. Hi everyone. Please, whatever you need to do to be comfortable, this is all important stuff, but whatever you need at any particular point in time, just do what you need to do. I'm Holly, I'm the CEO of the McGrath Foundation, and it's absolutely my pleasure and privilege to be with you guys today. This is such an important day, and to be part of the inaugural Health Expo is just spectacular. And I congratulate you on being here under fairly challenging circumstances, but also recognizing that owning your health and trusting your body and your instincts is incredibly important. Learning more about how you do that is critical. I'd also like to start by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land on which we meet today, the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation, and I would like to pay my respects to their elders past, present, and emerging. So I'm going to, first of all, I want to say safe space, and I'm going to ask you to just get involved with something that will hopefully bring a very important statistic to life. So if you feel comfortable, if you have had breast cancer or are currently going through breast cancer treatment, please can I ask you to stand up? Thank you, and thank you so much for sharing. Can I ask you just to stay standing? Please can you stand up if a member of your family or somebody that you love has had breast cancer? I'm going to stand up. Thank you. I'm in that group as well. Please stay standing. Please can you stand up if you know of somebody who has had breast cancer? Okay, look around the room. This is every room in the country. This is every family. This is every community. And the stat that is one that this brings home, hopefully, if you can just take the next slide, is that 1 in 7 women in their lifetime will be diagnosed. That equates to nearly 20,000 women this year in Australia who will be diagnosed. I do want to acknowledge about 165 men will also be diagnosed, but this is absolutely a disease which largely affects women. It's also becoming more common, and the reason for that is because we are an aging population, but there are lifestyle factors that play into that as well. But we've also got much better at detection, and that comes back to some of the stuff that Bronnie was talking a little bit about earlier, and I'm going to touch on that a bit more. So the reality is we are all going to know somebody with breast cancer. However, as Bronnie mentioned earlier, we are in a very fortunate situation. Australia has some of the best statistics around survivorship because of the incredible support and treatment that we have. So now the chance of living more than 5 years after a diagnosis is 92%, and that's up from 76% only 30 years ago, which is an incredible shift and talks volumes about the power that we have as a community to be able to make those improvements happen. Thank you for standing. Please do sit. So today I want to talk to you a little bit about the importance of good breast health understanding. I also want to highlight the impact of COVID, which a couple of people have already touched on, and give you a little bit of data around that. But also provide you some guidance of where to go and get help and support if you are diagnosed. Before I do that, I'm just briefly going to touch on the story of the McGrath Foundation. In 2005, Glenn and Jane started the foundation. As you probably know, Jane was diagnosed with breast cancer, and after the first bout, she recovered, but unfortunately, it returned. And at that stage, when she had advanced cancer, what's also called metastatic breast cancer, it's incurable. She was, however, fortunate enough to be connected to a breast care nurse, and this nurse changed her life. The way she speaks about it, and Glenn still talks about it in this way, he always says, Jane used to say it meant that she could be the wife, the mother, the friend that she wanted to be because she could ring fence her breast cancer. And in the sense that this nurse was able to support her to have quality conversations and access the right kind of support for her when she needed it in her local environment. She also felt that it gave her much more confidence to be asking the right questions, to be making smart decisions. And she wanted to make sure that every woman in Australia had access to a breast care nurse for free. And that was the founding principle of the foundation. She was also really passionate about breast health understanding, particularly amongst young women. Jane was diagnosed the first time at the age of 31. Now, that's unusual, and I'll talk a little bit about that later, but she was passionate, as I say, about breast health understanding and recognizing this affects anybody. It doesn't matter how old you are, it doesn't matter what you do for a job. Breast cancer does not discriminate. So my role at the foundation is I'm very privileged to be able to travel the country and meet many people who have had a breast cancer diagnosis. They say that one of the most important things to do is to trust yourself, to really learn what breast health understanding is all about. So, a few little stats for you. The average breast size in Australia is a 14C, but it doesn't matter whether you're a AAA or you're a J cup. Breast cancer is a risk, and what you need to know is how important it is to really understand what your body is like. I loved what Bronnie was saying about don't let abnormal become normal, because the reality is we all need to understand what normal is for each of us, because our bodies are all entirely different. So the most important thing I really want you to take away from this today is when we're talking about breast health understanding, it's about knowing what is normal so that you can so that you can understand what any change looks like. It's not necessarily just about a lump. And the reality is the power is in your hands. So at the foundation, we like to say, if you grow them, you need to know them. And what I can tell you is that 2/3 of breast cancer diagnoses don't come as a result of a screening. They come as a result of you finding it yourself, or maybe your partner finding it. So what we want to talk a bit about today is how to do breast exams. Many of you, if you've been taught how to do breast examinations, may well have been taught to do them in a fairly structured way. But the reality is much simpler than that, because there isn't really a wrong way to do it. The most important thing is to learn to know what they look like and what they feel like, so that you can spot any change. So that if you spot a change, you then know that you need to go and see your GP and then ask for some follow-up investigations if they believe that's the right thing for you. But at the foundation, our nurses have developed 3 really simple steps around how to check for yourself and to do this on a regular basis. And the first thing is you need to look. So stand in front of a mirror with your arms down and just look at the shape and the texture of your breasts. Then to do the same thing, but with your arms in the air, and that's really important. After that, it's about the feel of your breasts. And the really important thing here is not just about learning how your breasts feel, how your nipples feel. It needs to go all the way up to the collarbone, into your armpit, and then along the bottom of your bra line as well. And doing this on both sides, you will begin to learn what your breasts look and feel like. And that's the last part. It's learning what's normal for you. Because breasts can come in all shapes and sizes. And the reality is it's change that is the thing that you've got to keep a lookout for. So not letting abnormal become normal. If you want to understand a little bit more around what this looks like, you can go onto the website, mcgrathfoundation.com.au. It's a really simple 3-step guide. And what I really encourage you all to do is to make it part of your life on a regular basis. So, if you, what should you be checking for? What are the key things that you should be checking for? Jeff, if you can move to the next one, that would be awesome. Thank you. So, change in the size or shape. Most of us have one breast that is larger than the other. So it's not necessarily about a differential, it's about a change. So if you see a swelling, or maybe it gets pulled in a certain direction, just looks different, That's something to take notice of. A lump, of course, can be something that you might notice, or just general lumpiness, and that might even be like a dimpling of the skin or even redness. So it's not just a single hard lump, lumpiness overall. You also need to kind of think about, has the texture changed? Does it feel firmer, for example? Because that can be another change to look out for. You also need to notice a change in pain. Now, some of us, as part of our cycle, have pain every month anyway. That's normal pain, but if you start getting pain that's not normal as part of your cycle, that is also something to take note of. You also need to look at any changes in the shape or texture of your nipple, and if there is any discharge, and if it's bloody, it's a really important warning sign for you to get that looked at. And then the last part is if you get any swelling around your collarbone or into your armpit, that is also a warning sign. So, what happens if you notice a change? What should you do? If we can go to the next slide. Don't panic is the first thing I would say, because 9 out of 10 changes are not related to breast cancer. 9 out of 10 changes will not lead to a breast cancer diagnosis. However, if you have noticed any of these changes, it is a flag to go and do something about it. And so go and see your GP, and then they will make a decision as to whether or not this needs further investigation. And the reason we say you must go straight away is because the earlier breast cancer is diagnosed, the smaller it's likely to be, the more localized it's likely to be, therefore the better outcomes from a treatment point of view. And that's why early diagnosis over the last 30 years has helped us move from a 76% survival rate to a 92% survival rate. So as soon as you notice that change, don't let that abnormal become normal. Go to your GP and get it checked out. So, a little bit about BreastScreen, and I know that we have some people here from BreastScreen as well who'll be able to give you more information about that as well. But just a few pieces from my point of view. Mammograms are a phenomenally useful screening tool to detect breast cancer. And they have a couple of different purposes. One is part of the generic screening program, which is so important. And the second is as a diagnostic tool for when you notice something change and you need to go and see your GP, they will then potentially use that as a tool. Screening mammography is really important, especially if you are aged between 50 and 74. And it's the best method right now for detecting breast cancer early. And as I said, if we get them early, then we can treat them much better and your outcomes look much better. If you are between 50 and 74, you will get a letter to invite you in for a free mammogram every 2 years. But we should also recognize that BreastScreen does offer screenings for anybody over 40. However, the letters will only be sent out if you're between the ages of 50 and 74. Regular mammograms are not recommended for women under 40, and that's because when you are younger, your breast tissue is firmer, and so it's less easy to read a mammogram for somebody when they're that age. However, if you've noticed a change in your breast and you're under 40 and you go to your GP, it's highly likely that both a mammogram and potentially an ultrasound will be used as part of that screening to make sure that we really understand what's going on. Okay, impact of COVID. You've already heard a little bit about this. A few numbers, it has been really tough. As we heard from Bronnie, there have unfortunately been times when BreastScreen had to shut its doors. There was no choice. But what I can also tell you from our nurses and their patients, I've also heard many stories about women not wanting to place an incremental burden on the health system because they know that it's been dealing with so many other patients because of the COVID pandemic situation. I want to say that altruism was incredible, but now we need to not do that. Now we need to make sure everybody is getting their screening. If you notice a change, your need is equally as great. We know, for example, that in Victoria, where during the 2020 extended lockdown, BreastScreen was closed for quite a while, and there was a 37% drop in breast cancer diagnoses. And what that means is there may be thousands of people out there who have not had that early diagnosis, and that absolutely has potential knock-on effects and longer-term consequences. So we are now back to normal. People, everybody, if you notice a change, if you've got a screening, if you missed one, go back, book an appointment, get yourself checked, know what you need to do. So while you can have a breast cancer diagnosis at any age, the risk of being diagnosed with breast cancer does increase with age, with 75% of new cancers being diagnosed in women over 50. And the most common age to be diagnosed is actually 60 years old. You may well have heard about BRCA1, BRCA2 genes. Actually, genes, genetic testing and family hereditary situation only relates to about 5 to 10% of breast cancers. People make an assumption it's quite a lot more. It's really not. So that's why you have to recognize this can happen to everyone, and that's why everybody knowing their bodies, recognizing changes is a really important part of breast health understanding. So our nurses, as Bronnie mentioned, she was one of our first. We're very sorry that she didn't stay, but we love what she's doing right now. Our breast cancer nurses are available from the day of diagnosis. We have 177 of them right across Australia. They are completely free. You do not need a referral. You can jump onto our website, type in your local postcode, and your closest nurse will come up with her mobile number, and you can call her there and then. They are there for you. It doesn't matter whether you are in the private system, whether you're in the public, whether you're being treated between both. They are your advocate. They are your partner throughout treatment. And they are there not just for the person diagnosed, they are there for those you love. They are there to help you understand, how do I tell my kids? You know, how can I want to keep on working? How can I balance my treatment? How can I balance what I need to be doing for my family? They help you decipher the difficult technical language. When you get a diagnosis, your world implodes. Feels like you're in a storm. There's all this new language and words, and you have to make choices really quickly. The nurse is there to be your advocate, to help you make the smart decisions for you and your loved ones, and to help you navigate what is right for you, no matter where you live around Australia. And we know that that is very different depending on whether you are in a large city or whether you're in regional or remote environments, where you may well have to travel many hours to go and have treatment. So what is right for you in your local environment is absolutely critical, and the nurse is there to support you every step of the way. It is a trusted relationship. And what patients say to us is that this has been life-changing for them. It helps them to be the wife, the mother, the employee, the boss, the daughter, the woman that they want to be at that point in time. So if I want you to take away one thing from today, it's that these nurses are there to help you. They are massive advocates for breast health understanding. If you have any questions as well, as soon as you're diagnosed, even if it's a friend who is diagnosed, you can call about how you can help them as they go through. Okay, I'm going to wrap up now, but before I do, I did want to say I hope you found this really useful. We know that women's health is central to the health of communities across Australia, because we as individuals in the community are what helps that connectivity and helps support the health of the entire community. So it's a bit like, I'm going to go back to the oxygen mask analogy. You need to put your oxygen mask on first before you can help everybody else. So please look after your health, take ownership of it. And I'm going to leave you with one of my favorite quotes. And honestly, this is one of the reasons why I think we've had such phenomenal improvements in breast cancer treatment in the last 30 years. One of my favorite quotes comes from a 1950s TV show when the lead character was famously talking about the 3 fastest ways to get the word out there, to communicate. The 3 ways are telephone, telegraph, tell a woman. We are our own advocates. We can make this happen. We've done phenomenally in breast. And as you heard today, There are so many other areas where the power is in your hands to make a difference. So thank you.
Thank you.